Story 1. The Christmas Eve Loop. My name is Marcus Webb, and I've been driving long haul for 23 years. I've seen every kind of weather, every type of road hazard, and dealt with more breakdowns than I can count. But nothing in over 2 decades of trucking prepared me for what happened on Interstate 80 through Nebraska on Christmas Eve 2019. I was hauling a load of toys and electronics from a distribution center in California to a retail warehouse in Ohio. The irony isn't lost on me now. It was around 9:47 p.m. when I passed the exit for North Platte, Nebraska. I remember checking my watch specifically because I was calculating whether I'd make it to the truck stop in Lincoln before they stopped serving hot food. The highway was nearly empty, just a few scattered taillights in the distance, and the occasional eastbound truck passing in the opposite lanes. The night was clear and cold, temperature holding steady at 18 degrees. My CB radio had been quiet for the last hour, which wasn't unusual for that stretch on Christmas Eve. Most drivers had either finished their runs or pulled over for the night. I had my thermos of coffee, my GPS showing 287 miles to my next planned stop, and a playlist of old country music keeping me company. At mile marker 164, I noticed something odd. There was a green sedan pulled off on the shoulder, with its hazard lights flashing. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of a woman standing next to it, waving her arms. The temperature was well below freezing, and she wasn't wearing a coat. My first instinct was to pull over and help, but something about the scene felt wrong. The way she moved seemed off, jerky and unnatural, like a video playing at the wrong speed. I reached for my CB to report it to Highway Patrol, but before I could key the mic, I passed mile marker 164 again. The same green sedan, the same woman waving her arms in that strange, mechanical way. My stomach dropped. I checked my odometer. I'd definitely been moving forward. The white lines were flowing past beneath my wheels, but there was mile marker 164, plain as day in my headlights. I keyed the CB. "This is westbound Willie to any driver on I-80 eastbound near North Platte. Anyone copy?" Static. I tried again, switching channels. Nothing but empty white noise. I checked my cell phone. No signal, which wasn't uncommon in rural Nebraska, but the screen was flickering oddly, showing the time as 9:47 p.m. The same time I'd checked my watch when passing North Platte. The mile markers continued, 165, 166, 167. I started to relax, convincing myself I'd been mistaken about seeing 164 twice. Maybe I'd been drowsier than I thought. Then 168, 169, and suddenly there was 164 again. The green sedan. The woman, still waving with those jerky movements. This time I looked more carefully as I passed. Her face was pale, almost luminescent in my headlights, and her mouth was open in what might have been a scream or a smile. I couldn't tell which. Her eyes were completely black, reflecting nothing. My heart was hammering now. I pushed down on the accelerator, watching my speedometer climb to 75. The engine roared as I blew past mile markers, desperately counting them off. 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170. I felt a surge of relief. Then 164, the sedan, the woman. She was closer to the road now, nearly in my lane. I swerved to avoid her, my trailer fishtailing slightly before I regained control. I grabbed my logbook and started making notes, trying to stay rational, trying to think like the experienced driver I was. Time. Still 9:47 p.m. according to every clock in my cab. Location. Mile marker 164, Interstate 80, Nebraska. Repeating. I wrote down every detail I could remember about the woman and the car. Green Honda Civic, early 2000s model. Nebraska plates. Woman, mid-30s, blonde hair, black eyes, no coat, jeans and a red sweater. The loop continued. Every time I thought I'd broken free, there was mile marker 164. I tried slowing down to 40 miles per hour. I tried stopping completely on the shoulder, engine idling, watching the mile marker in my mirrors. After 5 minutes, I started driving again. Within seconds, I was passing 164 once more. The woman was now standing in the middle of my lane. I laid on the horn and braked hard, but my truck passed through her like she was smoke. In my mirror, I saw her turn to watch me go, her head rotating a full 180 degrees. I don't know how many times I completed that loop. 20, 50, 100. Time had become meaningless. My watch, my phone, the clock on my dashboard, all frozen at 9:47 p.m. The fuel gauge didn't move. The odometer didn't change. I was trapped in a 5-mile stretch of highway that should have been impossible. Desperation gave way to experiment. On what might have been the 40th loop, I tried taking the exit at mile marker 168. My steering wheel fought me, like invisible hands were wrenching it back toward the highway. I muscled through it, my arms shaking with effort, and my truck careened down the exit ramp. At the bottom was a stop sign and a dark 2-lane road leading into emptiness. No lights, no signs of civilization, just blackness. I turned right, driving for what felt like 10 minutes, then found myself back on I-80 eastbound, approaching mile marker 164. The woman had changed. Each loop, she was different. Her red sweater became darker, the color of dried blood. Her skin grew more translucent, revealing shadows of bones beneath. Her black eyes began to weep something dark that stained her face. But she was always waving, always trying to flag me down, always standing closer to the traffic lane than the time before. On one loop, I tried the CB again. This time, I got a response. "Westbound Willie, this is Desert Rose. You okay, buddy? You sound panicked." The voice was female, professional, calm. I nearly wept with relief. "Desert Rose, I'm stuck in some kind of loop on I-80. I keep passing the same mile marker. There's a woman on the side of the road. Something's very wrong." There was a long pause. Then, "Westbound Willie, there is no woman. There is no mile marker. 164. You passed Lincoln 20 minutes ago. You're at mile marker 390. You need to pull over, now." I looked at my GPS. She was right. It showed me well past Lincoln, approaching Omaha. But through my windshield, there was mile marker 164. The green sedan. The woman, now more corpse than living person, standing directly in my lane with her arms spread wide. I was seeing two realities at once, my mind fragmenting between them. "I can see it," I whispered into the CB. "I can see both. How can I see both?" "Listen to me carefully," Desert Rose said, her voice taking on an urgent edge. "Whatever you're seeing at mile marker 164, it's not real. A woman died there 17 years ago tonight. Sarah Hendricks. She was trying to flag down help for her family. They were in an accident during a snowstorm. She froze to death waiting. Every Christmas Eve, drivers report seeing her. But she's not there. You're not there. You need to choose which reality to believe." The woman was now pressed against my windshield, her translucent face filling my view, her mouth open in a silent scream. Her fingers scraped against the glass, leaving trails of ice. I could smell something through my vents, a mixture of decay and winter air. I closed my eyes. "I choose to keep driving east," I said aloud, gripping the wheel. "I choose to be past Lincoln. I choose to believe I'm at mile marker 390. I kept my eyes closed, maintaining my speed by feel and the sound of the engine. The scratching on my windshield grew frantic, then faded. The smell dissipated. After what felt like an eternity, Desert Rose spoke again. "Westbound Willie, I've got you on my GPS now. You're at mile marker 395. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." I opened my eyes. The highway ahead was different, I could see the lights of civilization in the distance. My dashboard clock read 10:23 p.m. 36 minutes had passed since 9:47. My fuel gauge had dropped appropriately. The mile markers were progressing normally: 396, 397, 398. I started laughing and crying at the same time. I pulled into a truck stop near Omaha and sat in my cab for an hour, shaking. I looked up Sarah Hendricks online. The story was real. December 24th, 2002. She'd been traveling with her husband and 2 children when they hit black ice at mile marker 164. The car went off the road. Her husband was unconscious. Her children were trapped. She tried to flag down help, but it was late and traffic was sparse. By the time someone stopped, she had severe hypothermia. She died in the ambulance. Her family survived. I completed that delivery, but I've never driven I-80 through Nebraska on Christmas Eve again. I reroute. I take time off. I don't care about the lost income, because sometimes, late at night when I'm driving alone, I still see her in my peripheral vision, standing on shoulders, waving, trying to get help that came too late. And my clock will flicker, just for a second, back to 9:47 p.m., before returning to normal. I'm terrified that one Christmas Eve, I'll look down and it will stay frozen there. And I'll be back in that loop, driving those same 5 miles forever, watching her deteriorate over and over, unable to help, unable to escape. Story 2. The Package from Nowhere. Jonathan Torres, that's my name. And I've been a delivery driver for regional freight companies for 15 years. Small packages, time-sensitive deliveries, medical supplies, whatever needs to get from point A to point B quickly in the Pacific Northwest. December 19th, 2021. I picked up what should have been a routine delivery from a shipping depot in Eugene, Oregon. Destination: a residential address in Bellingham, Washington. 600 miles, straight up Interstate 5. Easy overnight run. The package was about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in brown paper, secured with an excessive amount of tape. No return address, which wasn't unusual for some private shippers. The destination label was handwritten in neat, old-fashioned script: 2847 Eldridge Road, Bellingham, WA 98225. The sender's name was listed as Grierson, and there was a bright red sticker that said, "Deliver by December 23rd, critical." The weight listed on my manifest was 5 pounds. I loaded it into my van along with 14 other packages and started north around 8 p.m. The plan was to make deliveries along the route, with the Bellingham package being my final stop, late the following afternoon. Rain was coming down steadily, typical for Oregon in December. Traffic was moderate. I had my route optimized on my GPS, coffee in the cup holder, and a podcast queued up. The first strange thing happened around Salem. I was adjusting packages in the back during a delivery stop when I noticed the brown paper package had moved. I specifically remembered loading it in the lower left section, but now it was front and center on the middle shelf. Probably shifted during driving, I reasoned. I secured it with a bungee cord and continued on. By Portland, I'd completed 6 deliveries. When I opened the back doors for the 7th, the brown paper package was on the floor of the van, resting against the rear doors. The bungee cord was still attached to the shelf where I'd secured it, stretched to its limit, but not broken. The package itself looked undamaged. I picked it up. It was heavier than 5 pounds, more like 10 or 15. I checked the label. Same address, same name, same "Deliver by December 23rd" sticker. But the weight seemed wrong. I called my dispatcher. "Hey, Rita, I've got a question about a package. Manifest says 5 pounds, but it feels heavier. Should I reweigh it?" Static. I checked my phone. Full signal. I tried again. more static than a voice that might have been Rita's, but distorted. Deliver by December 23rd. Then the call dropped. I did what any sensible person would do. I resecured the package, this time using 2 bungee cords in an X pattern, and kept driving. Longview, Castle Rock, Centralia. I made my stops, and each time I opened the rear doors, the package had moved. Sometimes just a few inches, sometimes to a completely different shelf. The bungee cords were always still in place, stretched impossibly far, or tangled in configurations that shouldn't have been possible. Around 2 a.m., halfway between Olympia and Tacoma, I pulled into a rest area. The rain had turned to sleet, and I needed a break. I sat in the driver's seat, engine running for heat, and tried to rationalize what was happening. Packages don't move on their own. Maybe the van's suspension was causing some kind of unusual shifting. Maybe I was more tired than I thought and misremembering where I'd placed things. Then I heard it. A sound from the back of the van. Scratching. Not frantic, but methodical and persistent. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Pause. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I grabbed my flashlight and walked to the rear of the van. The scratching stopped. I opened the doors. The brown paper package was sitting on the floor again, centered perfectly between the doors. The paper wrapping looked newer somehow, less worn despite having supposedly been in transit. I picked it up. It was lighter now, maybe 3 pounds. The handwriting on the label had changed. Same information, same address, same name, but the script was different. Messier. The letters were slightly different sizes, as if written by someone with an unsteady hand, or someone different from whoever had written it before. I photographed the package with my phone, documenting everything. Then I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a small line of text near the bottom of the label, in tiny print. Return to sender, if undelivered by recipients passing. Recipients passing, like a death. I felt cold despite the van's heater running. I searched the address on my phone. 2847 Eldridge Road existed, a small house in a residential neighborhood in Bellingham. But when I clicked on the street view, the house looked abandoned. Overgrown yard, boarded windows. I checked property records. The last registered owner was Miriam Grierson, deceased 2018. M. Grierson, Miriam Grierson. A dead woman had sent herself a package. I should have refused the delivery. Should have driven back to Eugene and told dispatch I couldn't complete it. But something compelled me forward. Maybe it was professional pride. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe the package wanted me to deliver it, and I no longer had a choice. I completed my remaining deliveries in a haze of exhaustion and unease. Every time I checked, the package had moved again. Every time, it looked slightly different. The paper darker or lighter. The tape configuration changed. The handwriting on the label shifting between neat and chaotic. The weight fluctuated wildly. Once it felt empty, as if nothing was inside. The next time I picked it up, it was so heavy I nearly dropped it, at least 30 pounds pulling at my arms. By 4 p.m. on December 20th, I was approaching Bellingham. I had one package left. The December sky was already darkening, heavy clouds promising snow. I found Eldridge Road without difficulty, a street lined with modest homes decorated with Christmas lights. Number 2847 stood out immediately. It was the only house without decorations, without lights, without any sign of habitation. The yard was overgrown just like in the street view, but worse. The grass was waist-high. The windows were boarded from the inside. The mailbox hung at an angle, rusted and damaged. I sat in my van across the street for 20 minutes, debating. The sun was setting. My phone showed 4:47 p.m. Then 4:47 p.m. again. The clock wasn't advancing. I checked my van's dashboard. 4:47 p.m. My watch, 4:47 p.m. Time had stopped, just like it had for Marcus on that Nebraska highway, though I didn't know his story then. The scratching sound started again from the back of the van, more insistent now. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I got out and opened the rear doors. The package was floating. Actually floating, suspended in midair at eye level, rotating slowly. The brown paper was peeling away on its own, strips curling back to reveal a plain cardboard box beneath. The label faced me, and as I watched, new text appeared below the address, writing itself in dark ink. She's been waiting. The box dropped into my hands, suddenly solid and real again. Normal weight, maybe 5 pounds, like the manifest had originally stated. The scratching stopped. Time resumed. My watch clicked to 4:48 p.m. I looked at the abandoned house. In the window, I saw movement. A figure standing behind the boards, looking out, watching me. I walked to the front door on legs that didn't feel like my own. The porch boards creaked under my weight. I knocked, knowing no one would answer. The door swung open on its own, revealing a dark interior that smelled of dust and decay and something else, pine and cinnamon, like Christmas potpourri. "Delivery," I called out, my voice cracking. No response. I stepped inside. The house was furnished, but everything was covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. A Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with old-fashioned ornaments and tinsel. Presents sat beneath it, wrapped in faded paper. A layer of dust covered everything except one chair near the tree, which was clean, recently used. I placed the package under the tree with the others. As soon as I let go, I heard a sound behind me. A woman's voice, old and tired. "Thank you. I've been waiting for this." I spun around. The house was empty, but the chair by the tree was rocking gently. The package I'd just delivered was already open, the brown paper folded neatly beside it. Inside was a photograph in a frame, a family portrait from decades ago. Parents and 2 children, smiling. Professional quality, probably from the 1950s or 60s. "I sent it to myself," the voice continued, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Before I died. Used a service I shouldn't have known about, couldn't have known about. Made a deal. The package would arrive when someone was willing to complete the delivery, when someone would bring my family back to me, even if just in a photograph. I've been alone here so long. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran out of that house, into my van, and drove away without looking back. In my rearview mirror, the house lights turned on, every window glowing warm and golden, Christmas lights appearing along the roof and in the yard. Then I blinked, and it was dark and abandoned again. I reported the delivery as complete. My GPS showed I'd been at that address for less than 5 minutes, though it had felt like an hour. I drove back to Eugene, returned my van, and filed my paperwork. Everything was normal. Just another completed delivery. But 2 days later, I received a package at my own home. Brown paper, excessive tape, no return address. My own name and address in neat, old-fashioned handwriting. A red sticker. Deliver by December 23rd. Critical. Inside was a note in the same handwriting from the Bellingham package. "Thank you for your kindness. When your time comes, I'll make sure someone delivers what you need most. MG." I burned it. The note, the box, all of it. But sometimes I wonder what I would send to myself if I could. What package would I be waiting for in an empty house, in a stopped moment of time, on some future Christmas, when I'm gone but still waiting? and I wonder who will be compelled to deliver it, driving through their own confusion and fear, bringing me what I need most when I'm beyond needing anything at all. Story 3. The Rest. Stop, that wasn't there. Catherine Meyer. I go by Cat, and I've been a long-distance courier for specialty medical equipment for 8 years. I transport organs, blood supplies, experimental medications, whatever hospitals need urgently. It's high-pressure work, with tight deadlines, and no room for error. December 22nd, 2020, I was transporting blood samples from a research facility in Denver to a hospital in Kansas City. Time-critical, temperature-controlled cargo. My route took me east on I-70 through Kansas. I left Denver at 11 p.m., planning to drive straight through, arriving around 7 a.m. the next morning. The samples were in a specialized cooler in the back seat, temperature monitored by digital display. I had backup ice packs and a secondary cooling system. Everything was triple-checked. This was routine for me, despite the late hour and the Christmas week timing. The highway was nearly empty. Light snow was falling, but the roads were clear. I made good time through eastern Colorado and into Kansas. Around 2:30 a.m., I was about 40 miles west of Hays when I noticed I was getting low on fuel. Quarter tank. I'd planned to refuel in Hays, but a sign appeared in my headlights. Rest area, services 2 miles. Perfect. I could use the bathroom, grab a coffee, and fill up if they had a gas station. The rest area exit appeared exactly 2 miles later, well lit and clearly marked. I took the ramp and followed the service road for about half a mile. The rest area was bigger than I expected for rural Kansas. A large parking lot with spaces for both cars and trucks. A modern-looking building with lights on, and yes, a gas station. There were several vehicles in the lot, which was reassuring. I wasn't alone out here. I parked near the building and checked my cargo. Temperature was stable at exactly 4 degrees Celsius. I grabbed my purse and headed inside. The building was clean and bright, decorated with Christmas decorations that looked slightly out of date. Vintage Santas and tinsel garland that reminded me of my grandmother's house. Muzak was playing a slow, orchestral version of Silent Night. The bathroom was empty but well-maintained. I took care of business and went to find coffee. There was a small cafe area with self-service coffee and packaged snacks. No attendant, just a cash register with a sign. Honor system, leave payment in box. I poured coffee and left $3, then looked around for other people. The parking lot had vehicles, but I hadn't seen a single person inside. I walked through the building. There was a map display showing local attractions. A rack of tourist brochures, though the brochures looked old, sun-faded. A small gift shop area with t-shirts and postcards behind a locked gate. Everything was present but dated, like the rest area had been frozen in time from 20 years ago. The Christmas decorations, the style of the furniture, even the color scheme, all vaguely 1990s or early 2000s. A door near the back of the building was marked staff only, slightly ajar. Through it, I could hear voices. Low conversation, just on the edge of comprehensibility. I approached and knocked. Hello? I wanted to pay for my coffee properly if someone's available. The conversation stopped immediately. Total silence. Then the door pushed open on its own. Behind it was a break room. There was a table with coffee cups still steaming, as if someone had just been sitting there seconds ago. A television in the corner was on, showing static. Not the blue screen you get with no signal. Actual static. Black and white fuzz. Playing through the speakers wasn't white noise, but voices. Many voices, overlapping, all saying the same thing in different tones and inflections. Stay, stay, stay. I backed out of the room quickly. The main building suddenly felt oppressive. I needed to leave. I walked toward the exit, but the automatic doors didn't open. I tried waving my arms in front of the sensors. Nothing. I pushed on the doors manually. They were locked. Heavy glass doors with no visible lock mechanism, but completely immobile. My phone showed 2:47 a.m. and 0 signal. I tried the emergency call function. It rang once, then connected. 911. What's your emergency? The operator's voice was wrong. Too flat. No emotion. I'm trapped in a rest area on I-70, about 40 miles west of Hays, Kansas, I said. The doors won't open. Ma'am, there is no rest area at that location, the operator replied in that same flat tone. The nearest rest area is 60 miles west of your stated position. You are not where you think you are. Then where am I? I demanded. I can see my car in the parking lot. I'm standing in the building right now. You are nowhere, the operator said. Stay on the line. Help is coming. Stay, stay, stay. The word repeated, the operator's voice multiplying, overlapping with itself until it matched the chorus coming from the break room television. I ended the call. Think, Catherine. Problem solve. I'd been in dangerous situations before. Severe weather, vehicle breakdowns in isolated areas, aggressive drivers. I didn't panic then, and I wouldn't now. I looked for alternative exits. There were windows, but they were the thick industrial kind that didn't open. Fire exits. Buildings had to have fire exits. I found one on the side of the building, clearly marked. I pushed the bar. An alarm should have sounded. Nothing did. The door opened easily and I stepped outside. The cold air hit me immediately, but something was wrong with it. It didn't feel like real cold. It felt like the idea of cold, like my body knew it should feel freezing, but the sensation was hollow, artificial. The parking lot looked the same, but my car was gone. The other vehicles were still there. A pickup truck, 2 sedans, a minivan, but mine had vanished. I ran to where I'd parked. There was no snow disturbed, no tire tracks, no sign any vehicle had been there. I checked the temperature on my watch. Minus 12 degrees Fahrenheit. I was wearing just jeans and a light jacket. I should have been in serious danger from exposure, but I barely felt it. Just that strange, hollow approximation of cold. The other vehicles. Someone must be inside them. I tried the pickup first. Locked. I cupped my hands and looked through the window. The interior was full of snow. Not like snow had blown in through a crack. The entire cab was packed with snow, as if it had been filled deliberately, compressed in solid. I moved to the nearest sedan. Same thing. Snow packed so tightly, the seats weren't visible. The minivan was different. As I approached, I could see someone sitting in the driver's seat. A woman, her hands on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. I knocked on the window. She didn't react. I knocked harder. Her head turned toward me slowly, mechanically. Her eyes were completely white. No iris, no pupil. Her mouth opened, and I could see her breath fogging the window from inside as she said something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read her lips. Stay. I ran. Pure instinct. Back toward the building, around it, looking for my car, looking for anything that made sense. The rest area seemed to extend farther than it should. The parking lot was too big now, the building too tall. The exit back to the highway was gone. Where the service road had been, there was just empty prairie stretching into darkness. I pulled out my phone. 2:47 a.m. Still, the temperature reading on my medical cargo app caught my eye. It was still running, still showing the cooler temperature. 4 degrees Celsius, stable. If the app was working, my car had to be somewhere. The cooler was Bluetooth connected to my phone with a 30-foot range. I started walking in a grid pattern, watching my phone, waiting for the Bluetooth connection symbol. 20 minutes of searching, though my watch still claimed 2:47 a.m., and I found it. The connection icon appeared. I looked around. Nothing but empty parking lot. But according to my phone, the cooler was within 30 feet of me. I walked slowly, watching the signal strength indicator. It got stronger, stronger. I was standing in the middle of an empty parking space, and the signal was at maximum strength. My car was here. I just couldn't see it. I reached out my hand into the empty air and felt metal. The hood of my car. Invisible but solid and real. I felt my way along the car to the driver's door, found the handle, opened it. The interior light didn't turn on, but I could feel the seat, the steering wheel. I climbed inside, pulled the door closed, and the rest area vanished. I was parked on the shoulder of I-70, hazard lights flashing, engine running. Snow falling normally. Cold that felt real. My watch read 3:15 a.m. 28 minutes had passed. There were no rest area exits nearby. I checked my GPS history. It showed I'd been stopped on the highway shoulder for 28 minutes, exactly where I was now. I'd never left the road, but my footprints outside showed I'd walked a grid pattern in the snow. And when I checked my phone's photo gallery, I found pictures I didn't remember taking. Dozens of them. The rest area, the building, the parking lot. The woman in the minivan, her white eyes staring into the camera. I drove to Hayes, refueled, and continued to Kansas City. The delivery was successful. The blood samples were perfect, held at exactly 4 degrees the entire time. I filed my report, everything routine. But I researched that stretch of I-70. In 1998, there had been a rest area there. It was closed in 2003 due to repeated incidents. People reported feeling disoriented, seeing things, experiencing missing time. 2 people disappeared from that rest area entirely. Their vehicles found locked and empty. The building was demolished in 2004. The exit ramp was removed. Officially, it doesn't exist. But it does exist somewhere. And I think about the woman in the minivan, the people who disappeared, the voices saying stay over and over. I think about how my car became invisible, how time stopped, how I might never have left if I hadn't thought to check that Bluetooth signal. And I wonder how many people are still there, trapped in that nowhere place, sitting in cars packed with snow, or wandering that oversized parking lot, waiting for a help that will never come. I drive I-70 occasionally for work, and I never stop between Hayes and Russell anymore. I fill my tank beforehand. I make sure I don't need anything, because I know the rest area is still there, waiting at 2:47 a.m. for drivers who are tired or low on fuel, or just unlucky. And if you take that exit, if you see those lights, time might stop for you too, and you might never figure out how to make your car real again. Story 4. The Convoy to Nowhere. Name's Daniel Kovac, and I've been driving commercial rigs for 31 years, mostly hauling freight across the Midwest. Grain, equipment, manufactured goods, whatever needs moving between farms, factories, and distribution centers. December 18th, 2017, I was deadheading, driving empty, from Omaha back to my home base in Minneapolis. My trailer was empty after delivering a load of agricultural equipment, and I was looking forward to a few days off for Christmas. Around 7 p.m., I was on Highway 169 north through Iowa, about 20 miles south of Fort Dodge. Light traffic. Weather was cold but clear, temperature around 15 degrees. A perfect night for making good time. My CB had been quiet, just occasional check-ins from other drivers, and some chatter about road conditions further north. Then a voice came over Channel 19. Northbound drivers approaching Fort Dodge. This is convoy leader to any trucks heading through Minnesota. We've got an unofficial convoy forming for safety. Black ice reports north of Mason City. Strength in numbers. Anyone interested? Flash your lights twice. I could see 3 trucks ahead of me in the distance. As I watched, their running lights flashed twice in sequence. The voice continued. That's 3. Any others? I considered it. Convoys aren't officially organized anymore, but sometimes in bad weather or dangerous conditions, truckers group up for safety. Someone breaks down, everyone stops to help. Someone hits trouble, everyone's got CB contact. It's an old tradition. I keyed my mic. This is Nordic Express. I'm interested. Currently about a quarter mile behind you 3. My running lights flashed twice. Nordic Express confirmed, the voice responded. Welcome aboard. We've got 3 so far, plus you makes 4. We're looking for 6 total. The number's important. Always 6. That should have been my first warning. The phrasing was odd. The number's important. Always 6. Why was 6 specifically important? But I dismissed it. Maybe it was some superstition, some old trucker tradition I'd never heard of. This job is full of superstitions. Never take the first parking spot. Never count empty trailers. Never drive past accident scenes without a short prayer. Over the next 10 miles, 2 more trucks joined. Each time, the convoy leader confirmed them. That's 5. 1 more needed. Always 6. We passed through Fort Dodge together, maintaining steady spacing, all of us cruising at exactly 65 miles per hour. The CB was active with friendly conversation. The convoy leader asked each of us standard questions: where we were heading, what we were hauling, how long we'd been driving. Normal trucker talk. When the 6th truck joined just north of Fort Dodge, something changed. The convoy leader's voice came through. 6 confirmed. The convoy is complete. From this point, maintain exact speed and spacing. Stay on Channel 19. Do not break convoy for any reason until we reach our destination. What destination? Someone asked. We're all heading to different places. The destination will become clear, the convoy leader said. Trust the process. This is for your safety. The conversation on the CB continued, but I started paying more attention to the other trucks. We were in formation now, perfectly spaced about 100 feet apart. I was 4th in line. Every time I drifted slightly left or right, I felt a strange compulsion to correct back to perfect center. My steering wheel felt like it was guiding itself, subtle adjustments I wasn't consciously making. We passed through Algona, then crossed into Minnesota. The road signs were normal. Traffic was light but present. Cars passing us, a few trucks going south in the opposite lanes. Everything seemed fine, except that nagging feeling that something was off. The CB chatter continued, but I started noticing that the other drivers were answering the convoy leader's questions in strange ways. Trucker 3, how long you been on the road? The convoy leader asked. 17 years, came the response. Died in a pileup in 2009. Still driving. I laughed, thinking it was a dark joke. No one else laughed. The CB stayed quiet for a long moment. Then, Trucker 5. 23 years for me. Jackknifed in a storm in 2003. Went through the guardrail. Still can't remember hitting the water. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. These weren't jokes. The voices were too flat, too matter-of-fact. I keyed my mic. This isn't funny, guys. What kind of game is this? No game, Nordic Express, the convoy leader said. We're all exactly where we're supposed to be. How long have you been driving? 31 years, I said carefully. And I'm very much alive. Are you? The convoy leader asked. Check your cargo manifest. What are you hauling? I'm empty, I said, deadheading home. Check anyway. I didn't want to. Everything in me screamed not to look at that paperwork. But my hand reached for the clipboard on my passenger seat without my conscious direction. I pulled out the manifest. It wasn't the agricultural equipment delivery form I'd filed in Omaha. It was a different manifest entirely, dated December 18th, 2017, with my signature, but listing cargo I'd never loaded. One standard, casket. Deceased, Daniel Kovac. Destination, Lakewood Cemetery, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I dropped the clipboard like it was on fire. My heart was hammering. I looked in my mirrors. The trucks behind me were still there, maintaining perfect spacing. I looked ahead. 3 trucks in front, the same. We were passing through Fairmont now, but the town looked wrong. There were Christmas lights, but they were all white, no colors. The buildings looked faded, like old photographs. I grabbed my CB. I'm breaking convoy. This is insane. I'm taking the next exit. You can't break convoy, the convoy leader said calmly. 6 is required. Always 6. If you leave, we'll need to recruit a replacement. That's how you joined us, Nordic Express. Remember, someone broke convoy. We needed a 6th. You answered the call. I tried to slow down. My foot pressed the brake pedal, but my truck maintained speed. 65 exactly. I tried to steer toward the shoulder. My hands wouldn't turn the wheel more than a degree or two. The truck was driving itself, keeping me in perfect formation. What is this? I shouted into the CB. Where are we going? You know where, Trucker 2 said. You've known since you joined. Lakewood Cemetery. Same as the rest of us. We're all going home, Daniel. We just have to maintain the convoy until we get there. That's the only way the road stays open. I looked at the road ahead. It was changing. The asphalt was the same, the white lines marking lanes, but everything else was shifting. The landscape beside the highway was becoming less distinct, more like a suggestion of fields and trees rather than actual physical features. The sky above was too dark, starless. Other vehicles on the road were becoming transparent, ghostly. We were driving through somewhere between reality and something else. I'm not dead, I said desperately. I can't be dead. I remember today. I remember making that delivery in Omaha. I remember eating lunch at a diner in Council Bluffs. I remember calling my wife this afternoon. What did she say? The convoy leader asked gently. I tried to remember. I'd called her around 2 p.m. I'd told her I was heading home, would be there tomorrow. She'd said... What had she said? I couldn't remember her response. Couldn't remember her voice. Couldn't remember if she'd said anything at all, or if I'd just left a message. The memory was there, but incomplete, like a video with missing frames. Exit 169 coming up, Trucker 5 said. Border crossing ahead. What border? I asked, though I was afraid I knew the answer. The exit appeared in my headlights. The sign read simply, Transfer Point. We took it together, all 6 trucks in perfect formation. The ramp curved for what seemed like miles, spiraling down and down, though my truck's GPS showed us climbing in elevation. When we emerged, we were on a different road entirely. This road was empty. No other traffic, no buildings, just highway stretching ahead into darkness, with 6 trucks driving in perfect formation. The landscape on either side was indistinct, shifting between different scenes. Sometimes winter fields, sometimes forests, sometimes what looked like suburban neighborhoods from different decades. I could see houses decorated for Christmas from when I was a child. I could see storefronts that had closed 20 years ago. We were driving through memory and geography that no longer existed. My CB crackled. Nordic Express, you have a choice. It was a different voice now. Female, unfamiliar. The convoy can reach its destination, or you can fight. Fighting will break the convoy. Breaking the convoy will require us to find a replacement. That replacement will be another living driver who answers the call. Someone else will take your place in the convoy, and you'll take theirs in the world of the living. A trade. Who decides who gets traded? I asked. You do. If you fight hard enough to break free, the next driver to respond to the convoy call takes your position. You return to your life at the exact moment you joined. Everything after this will be erased. You'll have no memory of the convoy. You'll simply find yourself driving normally past Fort Dodge, and somewhere behind you, another truck will be joining a formation they can't escape. I thought about my wife, my kids, both grown now with families of their own. Christmas in 3 days. I thought about living versus whatever awaited at the cemetery. I thought about the choice I was being given, my life in exchange for condemning someone else to this convoy. How did I join? I asked. Was I dying? Did I have an accident? Check your mirrors, the convoy leader said. Look at your trailer. I adjusted my driver's side mirror to look back at my trailer. It wasn't empty. I could see through the walls somehow, an X-ray vision that shouldn't be possible. Inside was twisted metal, the cab of my truck completely destroyed, and a shape in the driver's seat that looked like me, broken and still. Jackknifed on ice, Trucker 2 said softly. Back near Fort Dodge, about 10 minutes before you heard the convoy call. In one reality, you died. In another, you heard the call and answered. Now you're driving the space between those realities, and you have to choose which one becomes permanent. I drove in silence, for what might have been minutes or hours. Time didn't function normally here. My watch showed 7:47 p.m., same time it had been when I first heard the convoy call. The trucks ahead of me maintained their spacing. The trucks behind me did the same. We were locked together, 6 souls in 6 trucks, driving toward whatever destination awaited. Finally, I spoke. If I break convoy, someone else takes this ride. Some other driver who might have a wife waiting, kids coming home for Christmas, a life they want to keep living. That's correct, the female voice confirmed. And if I stay, if I see this through to the cemetery, then you accept what happened. The accident becomes permanent. Your family receives closure. No one else is recruited. The convoy completes its journey with you as the 6th. But I won't exist anymore. You don't exist now. Not in the way you think. You're driving through the between space, Daniel. A pause before the ending. This choice is your mercy. Not everyone gets one. I looked at my dashboard. The gauges were frozen. Speedometer at 65, fuel at half tank. The Christmas tree air freshener hanging from my mirror that my daughter had given me last year. All the small details of a life lived in truck cabs, highways, and distant destinations. I keyed the mic one last time. I stay. Complete the convoy. Don't recruit someone else. The road ahead solidified. The cemetery appeared in the distance, real and concrete. Minneapolis skyline behind it, lights from the living city. Dawn was breaking, though it should have been the middle of the night. The 6 trucks drove through the cemetery gates together, maintaining formation until the very end. As we stopped in perfect sequence, I saw them. 6 graves, 6 names, 6 dates of death, all on December 18th, different years. The most recent was mine, Daniel Kovac, 1956, 2017. Someone had already arranged my funeral. My truck, my physical truck, would be found crushed on Highway 169 near Fort Dodge. Evidence of black ice and a jackknife that happened too fast to avoid. But I also saw something else. My wife, standing by a different grave, placing flowers. She was older now, aged years in what had been hours for me. She was crying, but also smiling, talking to the stone about our grandchildren, about Christmas plans, about how she still missed me, but was okay. She was okay. The convoy dissolved. The other 5 trucks faded like morning mist. I was alone, standing outside my cab, looking at my own grave. I could see through my hands now, translucent and fading. The sun was rising on Christmas morning, 2025. 8 years had passed in what felt like hours. Time had collapsed differently on the road to the cemetery. As I disappeared entirely, I understood. The convoy wasn't a trap. It was a kindness, a space between death and acceptance, where drivers could choose, cling to life by passing the burden to someone else, or accept the end and spare them. I chose acceptance. I chose to let my accident be final, rather than recruit another soul to drive those dark roads. Sometimes now I hear that the convoy still forms up on Highway 169 on winter nights. But it only needs 5 trucks now, not 6. 5 drivers who died, but couldn't let go, still maintaining formation, still driving toward an acceptance they're not ready for. They're waiting for one more to complete their convoy. But I'm not on that road anymore. I kept my choice. I made it to my destination. And I hope whoever answers their call next is given the same choice I was, to break free by condemning another, or to accept the end with grace. Story 5. The radio station that played tomorrow. My name is Raymond Chen, 54 years old, professional driver for a luxury car service. I transport high-end vehicles from dealerships to wealthy clients, estate sales to auction houses, private collections to shows. December 20th, 2018. I was driving a pristine 1967 Shelby GT500 from an estate sale in Nashville to a private collector in Chicago. Classic car, worth over $500,000, and my job was to deliver it safely before Christmas. The car was museum quality, completely restored, every original part maintained or authentically replaced. Driving it was a privilege. The owner had specifically requested I take back roads when possible to avoid highway traffic and reduce accident risk. So instead of Interstate 65 straight north, I mapped a route through rural Kentucky and Indiana, 2-lane state highways through small towns. Everything was perfect for the first 3 hours. The Shelby drove like a dream. Cold December night, clear roads, light traffic. I was making excellent time. Around 10 p.m., I was on State Route 231 in southern Indiana, passing through farmland and forest. My phone GPS was navigating, but I also had paper maps as backup, old habit from before smartphones. The radio in the Shelby was original, a vintage AM unit with classic chrome knobs. I had it turned off, preferring the sound of the engine, but around 10:15 p.m., it turned on by itself. Not uncommon with old electronics, short circuits, worn wiring. Static hissed from the single speaker, then resolved into a station. This is WTMR, broadcasting tomorrow's news today, a smooth male voice announced. The time is 10:17 p.m., December 21st, 2018. Here are tonight's top stories. I reached to turn it off, then stopped. December 21st. Tomorrow. The announcer was giving tomorrow's date. Obviously a mistake, or maybe I'd heard wrong. I left it on, curious. A major accident on State Route 231 near Jasper. Indiana has claimed the life of one driver tonight. Raymond Chen, age 54, of Chicago, died at approximately 10:45 p.m. when his vehicle left the road and struck a tree. Chen was transporting a classic automobile at the time. Authorities say ice on the roadway was a contributing factor. The blood drained from my face. The announcer had just reported my death. My name, my age, my location. Half an hour from now. I grabbed the radio knob and turned it off. Silence. My heart was pounding. Some kind of sick prank. Had to be. But how? This was an AM radio. No Bluetooth, no aux input. Just radio waves. I pulled over to the shoulder and sat there, engine idling, hands shaking. My phone showed 10:18 p.m., December 20th, not the 21st. The radio had to be malfunctioning, picking up some pirate broadcast, some elaborate hoax. But it had used my name, my exact age, my location. I looked at my GPS. I was 15 miles from Jasper, Indiana, heading north on 231. According to the radio, I would die between here and there in 27 minutes. Ice on the roadway. I looked at the temperature gauge on the dashboard. 31 degrees. Right at freezing. Conditions for black ice. Logical decision. Take a different route. I pulled up my GPS and found an alternate path that avoided 231 entirely, cutting east on county roads before rejoining my route 20 miles north. It would add 40 minutes to my drive. But if there was even a 1% chance that radio broadcast was legitimate somehow, it was worth it. I put the Shelby in gear and started to pull back onto the highway. The radio turned on again by itself. Same station, same smooth voice. WTMR traffic update. For drivers attempting to avoid the Route 231 accident, be advised that all alternate routes experience delays. County Road 150 is closed due to a downed tree at 10:35 p.m. State Route 56 has a multi-vehicle accident at 10:52 p.m. Interstate 64 has a chemical spill at 11:15 p.m., causing complete closure. All roads lead back to 231 tonight, Raymond. The accident happens at 10:45. I yanked the radio knob so hard, it came off in my hand. The broadcast continued without it. WTMR cannot be turned off until the broadcast completes. This is for your information and safety. You have 25 minutes. This isn't real, I said aloud. Radios don't predict the future. This is impossible. Tomorrow's news today, the announcer responded, as if he could hear me. That's our motto. We don't predict, Raymond. We report. These events have already happened from our perspective. We're broadcasting from December 21st. You're listening from December 20th. We exist 12 hours ahead of you in your local future. I sat in stunned silence. The radio continued. You're wondering if you can change it. The answer is complicated. The accident we're reporting has already happened in our timeline. But timelines are flexible at certain junctures. You're experiencing one now. Your choices in the next 24 minutes will determine which timeline solidifies. How do I avoid dying? I asked, feeling insane for speaking to a radio. We can't tell you that directly, but we can report what happens in other timelines. In Timeline Alpha, you continue north on 231. At mile marker 47, you encounter black ice. The Shelby is rear-wheel drive with significant power. You overcorrect. The tree is unforgiving. In Timeline Beta, you take County Road 150. The downed tree falls as you pass beneath it at 10:35. The Shelby's roof cannot withstand the impact. In Timeline Gamma, you park here and wait. At 11:30 p.m., a drunk driver leaves a bar in Jasper and heads south on 231. He falls asleep at the wheel. His truck drifts onto the shoulder, exactly where you're parked. So I die, no matter what I do. My voice was cracking. In most timelines, yes. Tonight is a convergence point for you, Raymond. Multiple probability streams collapsing toward a single outcome. Your death on December 20th, 2018 is extremely probable, but not certain. There are branches where you survive. Tell me which branch, I begged. We can't. Causality doesn't work that way. If we tell you specifically what to do, that becomes the timeline where we told you, and circumstances adjust accordingly. The universe has remarkable corrective properties. It wants this outcome. You have to find the survival path yourself. The radio went to commercial. Actual commercials, as surreal as the news. An ad for a mattress store going out of business. A car dealership Christmas sale. A public service announcement about winter driving safety, which felt like vicious irony. Then back to the announcer. Time is 10:27 p.m., 18 minutes until the Route 231 accident. For drivers in the Jasper area, be advised that unusual radio transmissions have been reported tonight. Several drivers have called police reporting broadcasts from the future. Authorities are investigating possible FCC violations, but have not located the transmission source. Police remind drivers that unusual radio content is not a reason to panic or drive erratically. Other people were hearing this too. That was almost comforting. I wasn't losing my mind alone. I started driving again, slowly, heading north on 231. If all routes led to death, then maybe the route didn't matter. Maybe there was something else I was supposed to understand. Smart choice, Raymond, the radio said. You're beginning to think correctly. The route is irrelevant. The vehicle is irrelevant. Even the time is somewhat flexible. What matters is the decision point. Every convergence has one, a single choice that determines which timeline solidifies. What's my decision point? I asked. We're approaching it now. Mile marker 45, 3 miles ahead. Watch carefully. I drove slowly, watching the roadside. Mile marker 43, mile marker 44. Then 45 appeared in my headlights. The radio said, "Stop here." I pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. The radio continued. In 20 seconds, you'll see headlights approaching from behind. A car traveling south. The driver is elderly, having trouble seeing. She's lost and confused. In timeline alpha, you stay parked here. She drifts onto the shoulder and hits the Shelby from behind at 40 miles per hour. The classic car's fuel system ruptures. Fire. In timeline beta, you pull back onto the highway to avoid her. You accelerate into the black ice at mile marker 47. Same tree, same outcome. In timeline gamma, you help her. Help her how? I demanded. Figure it out. 15 seconds. I got out of the Shelby, standing on the shoulder. The night was cold and clear. I could see headlights approaching from the south, weaving slightly. The car was coming fast, the driver clearly struggling. 10 seconds. The radio was counting down now. 9, 8, 7. I understood. I stepped into the southbound lane, waving my arms, illuminated by my own headlights from behind. The approaching car saw me and braked hard, coming to a stop 30 feet away. An elderly woman got out, shaking. "Oh God, I almost hit you. I'm so sorry. I'm lost. I can't find Highway 64. 64 is about 2 miles back," I told her. "But you shouldn't be driving. You're exhausted. Let me help you." The radio in the Shelby, audible through the open door, said, "Timeline delta solidifying. Convergence point passed. Probability of death tonight reduced to 12%. Still above baseline, but survivable." I helped the woman get reoriented, gave her clear directions, and made her promise to pull over if she felt too tired. She thanked me profusely and drove off slowly, carefully. I got back in the Shelby. The radio was still on. 10:46 p.m., the announcer said. "The accident on Route 231 near Jasper has been avoided. Raymond Chen, age 54, of Chicago, survived tonight through an act of intervention. However, this broadcast must continue. Tomorrow's news today. We have other stories. The radio proceeded to give me the next 24 hours of my life in detail. Arriving in Chicago at 2:30 a.m., delivering the Shelby successfully, receiving payment and praise from the collector, driving home to my apartment, sleeping until noon. That's where the broadcast ended. This is WTMR signing off. We exist to inform, not to change. But sometimes, Raymond, information is enough. The timeline is yours now. Make it count. The radio went silent. I tried to turn it back on. Dead. Not even static. I checked the connections. Everything looked functional, but no stations would come in. Not even normal AM broadcasts. The radio had served its purpose and gone dormant. I drove the rest of the way to Chicago in silence, watching the mile markers pass, thinking about timelines and convergence points and radio stations that somehow broadcast from tomorrow. The delivery went exactly as the radio had described. Every detail matched. The collector was thrilled with the Shelby. I got paid, drove home, and slept until noon, just as predicted. The next day, December 21st, I researched WTMR. No such station existed. No FCC records, no broadcasting license, no physical location. I found one forum post from a trucker who claimed he'd heard a station broadcasting tomorrow's news in 2003, and it had saved his life by warning him about a bridge collapse. Several replies called him crazy. One reply said simply, WTMR saved me too. 1987. I don't talk about it because no one believes it, but it's real. I sold the Shelby incident to myself as stress, coincidence, maybe early dementia, but I couldn't explain how the radio knew my name, my age, my location, and the exact details of what would happen the next day. I kept the radio knob I'd pulled off, the one that came off in my hand when I tried to turn off the impossible broadcast. It's in my desk drawer, a reminder that time isn't as linear as we think, and somewhere there's a radio station broadcasting tomorrow's news today, trying to create the occasional timeline delta where someone survives who was supposed to die. I still drive classic cars for clients. I still take back roads. But I never drive through Jasper, Indiana on December 20th. And I always listen carefully to the radio, just in case WTMR decides to broadcast in my direction again. Because if they do, it means I'm at another convergence point. And next time, I might not figure out the decision point in time. 12% chance of death, the announcer said. Still above baseline. I think about that a lot. What's my baseline? How many times have I been at convergence points without knowing? How many times did I make the wrong choice, and some other version of me died while I continued on, unaware? The radio sits in my garage now, removed from the Shelby before I delivered it. I've never installed it in another car. I don't want to hear tomorrow's news unless absolutely necessary, because knowledge of the future is a burden, and convergence points are terrifying. That moment at mile marker 45, where multiple timelines balanced on the edge of a single choice, I could feel it, even before I understood what was happening. Reality was thin there, flexible. I could have slipped into any of those futures. I'm glad I chose the one where the elderly woman got home safely, even if it meant extending my own uncertainty. Living in timeline delta beats dying in alpha, beta, or gamma. But I'll always wonder about the other Raymond Chens, the ones who made different choices at mile marker 45. Are they wondering about me? Or did they stop wondering the moment black ice sent them into that tree? Story 6. The Christmas Deliveries That Went Backward. Letitia Washington, age 41, owner-operator of a small package delivery service in rural Vermont. I handle local deliveries, mail route coverage, courier services, anything that needs moving within about a 50-mile radius. December 23rd, 2019. I had a full schedule. 27 deliveries, mostly Christmas packages that needed to arrive before the holiday. The weather forecast was calling for snow, so I wanted to complete everything before the storm hit. I started my route at 6 a.m., working from a list organized by location to minimize drive time. First delivery. A package to the Hendricks family on Maple Ridge Road. I arrived at 6:24 a.m., dropped the package on the porch. They'd requested no signature, and took my verification photo. Moving on. Second delivery. Thompson residence, about 3 miles away. Arrived at 6:41 a.m. Left package, took photo, noted the time in my logbook. I'm meticulous about records. Have to be when you run your own business. Third delivery, Chen family on Birch Lane. Fourth, Martinez residence. By 8:15 a.m., I'd completed 7 deliveries and was ahead of schedule. The 8th delivery was for a family named Patterson. The address was in my GPS, 1847 Old Summit Road. It was slightly out of my way, up a steep hill on the edge of town, but I'd delivered there before. Nice people, older, couple. I navigated the winding road up the hill, my van handling the incline easily despite patches of ice. I arrived at 8:33 a.m. according to my phone. The house looked right. White 2-story farmhouse, red door, wreaths on the windows. But when I checked my delivery list, something was wrong. Next to the Patterson address, my own handwriting showed I'd already completed this delivery. Time: 8:33 a.m. Photo verification, taken. But I was just arriving now. I hadn't delivered here yet. I looked at the package in my van. Standard box, about 12 inches square. Addressed to Robert and Linda Patterson, 1847 Old Summit Road. Definitely not delivered. Definitely still in my van. But my logbook said otherwise, in my handwriting, with my signature. I decided to deliver it anyway. Obviously, I'd made a record-keeping error somehow. Maybe I'd pre-filled my logbook and gotten confused. I walked to the porch with the package. Then I saw myself, standing on the porch, holding the same package, taking a verification photo. Same jacket, same van parked in the same spot. I was watching myself complete this delivery. The other me looked up, made eye contact, and dropped the package. Her face, my face, registered pure shock. She sprinted to the van and drove away, tires spinning on ice in her panic to leave. I stood frozen, watching my own van disappear down the hill. Then I looked down. The package she'd dropped was on the porch. I was still holding my package. 2 identical boxes, same address, same contents, presumably. My phone rang. I answered automatically. Hello? Letitia, it's you. Listen very carefully. My own voice. Calling from my own number. Don't freak out. I know what you just saw. I am you. From 7 minutes ahead. When you leave the Patterson house, you'll drive to the next delivery. On the way, your phone will ring. That's when you'll be having this conversation with your past self. The timeline is looping backward. This isn't possible, I said. I said the same thing 7 minutes ago. But it's happening. Here's what I know. After you leave Patterson's house, time will stutter. You'll arrive at destinations you've already visited. You'll see yourself making deliveries you've already made. Each loop goes backward about 15 minutes. I've experienced 3 loops so far. Each time I'm you from further in the future, calling to warn you, myself, about what's coming. How do I stop it? I demanded. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But listen. When you get to the Chen family house on your next loop backward, look in their mailbox. I'm leaving a note. I've been trying to compile information across loops. Maybe if we work together across time, we can find a pattern. The call ended. I stood on the Patterson porch, looking at two identical packages, my mind reeling. Time loops. I was experiencing my own deliveries backward, encountering past versions of myself. Or future versions. The temporal mechanics made my head hurt. I took a photo of the package that other me had dropped, then got in my van and drove back down the hill. According to my GPS, the next delivery was the Martinez residence. But I'd already been there. I'd completed that delivery at 7:58 a.m. It was now 8:41 a.m. I shouldn't be going backward in my route. I drove anyway, watching the clock. At 8:44 a.m., I arrived at the Martinez residence. My van was already there. Past me was walking back from the porch, delivery completed. She got in the van and started to drive away, then saw me. Our eyes met through windshields. She looked terrified. I waved, trying to indicate I wasn't a threat, but she accelerated away, nearly hitting a mailbox in her panic. My phone rang. I answered. "This is future Letitia. I'm about 22 minutes ahead of you now, 4th loop. I've been to the Chen house. There's no note yet. You haven't left it. So I'm leaving one now, from this position in the timeline. When you get there, read it carefully. I'm starting to understand the pattern." "What pattern?" I asked. "Every delivery you make is creating a temporal bookmark. The packages are anchoring moments in time. When you encounter yourself, you're seeing those bookmarks activate. I think the storm is relevant. Check the weather." I looked at my phone's weather app. The snow forecast had changed. The storm was intensifying, expected to arrive earlier than predicted. Heavy snow warnings, potential whiteout conditions starting around noon. 6 severe weather alerts had been issued just in the last hour. The meteorologists sounded confused. The storm was behaving unusually, intensifying rapidly. I drove to the Chen house. It was 8:52 a.m., but the last time I'd been here was 6:57 a.m., almost 2 hours ago. Past me wasn't here yet, too far back in the timeline. I checked their mailbox. Inside was a note in my handwriting. "Letitia, this is you, from 4 loops ahead, approximately 45 minutes into your future. The backward progression is accelerating. Each loop is taking less time. I think we're spiraling toward a specific moment. Check your first delivery of the day. Hendricks family." There was something wrong with that package. I remember now. When you delivered it, there was a sound coming from inside, like ticking. We need to go back there. That's where this starts. Ticking. A timer. I felt cold. I'd heard it too, but dismissed it as settling contents or my imagination. I drove immediately toward Maple Ridge Road, the Hendricks house, my first delivery of the day. As I drove, I passed myself 3 times. 3 different versions of Letitia Washington at 3 different points in the delivery route, all looking increasingly panicked. At 9:03 a.m., I arrived at the Hendricks address. The package was still on the porch. They hadn't taken it inside yet. I could hear it now, clearly. Tick, tick, tick. Not settling contents. A timer. I grabbed the package and looked at the label. No return address. The sender name was listed as T. Kronos, which I'd noted as unusual when I'd first seen it this morning, but hadn't thought much about. Kronos, Greek god of time. I carefully opened the package. Inside wasn't a gift. It was a device, homemade electronics surrounding a digital timer. The display showed numbers counting down. Yo 2, 47, 18, 2 hours, 47 minutes. Counting down to what? The timer was connected to a small metal sphere about the size of a tennis ball, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. My phone rang again. This is you from Loop 6. I'm watching you open that package in the Hendricks porch right now. I'm parked down the street. Don't touch the sphere. That's what's causing the temporal distortion. It's a chronometric device, basically a time bomb. Not explosive, temporal. When it reaches 0, it creates a localized time loop. We're in the setup phase. The device is already active, folding time back on itself in preparation. When it hits 0 at 11:50 a.m., everyone in a 5-mile radius will be trapped in a repeating loop of this morning's deliveries, over and over, forever. Who sent this? I shouted at my future self. Unknown. But the postmark is dated December 23rd, 2025. 6 years from now, someone sent this backward through time. Maybe to trap us, maybe for another reason. But we have to stop it. The loop is tightening. I've experienced 6 backward iterations. You're on your 2nd or 3rd. Eventually, we'll all converge at the same moment, and then time will lock. How do we stop it? I asked. I'm still figuring that out. But I know we need help from someone who understands chronometric physics. And the only person in Vermont who might is Dr. Philip Morrison at the university. Problem: he's 60 miles away in Burlington, and we have less than 3 hours before the device activates. With the storm coming, roads will be impassable soon. We'd never make it there and back. I stared at the device, my mind racing. What if we don't go there? What if we call him, send him photos, get his advice remotely? Silence on the phone. Then, that might work. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, because I'm you and you're me, and we both just thought of it simultaneously. We're converging thoughts across temporal loops. Letitia, our consciousness is synchronizing. We're becoming the same moment approached from different angles. I took photos of the device from every angle and called the university. It took 15 minutes of being transferred, but I finally reached Dr. Morrison. I explained the situation as best I could without sounding completely insane. To his credit, he took me seriously. Send me those photos, he said. Chronometric devices are theoretical, but I've seen research. If what you're describing is real, it's extraordinarily dangerous. I sent the photos and waited, watching the timer tick down. 02:29:41. My phone rang repeatedly. Versions of myself from different loops, all converging on this moment, all realizing simultaneously that the Hendricks package was the center of the problem. I stopped answering. Too confusing. Dr. Morrison called back. Okay, this is definitely a chronometric field generator. Military research, black budget stuff from what I recognize. Extremely illegal. It's creating a closed time-like curve, a path through space-time that loops back on itself. You're experiencing the setup phase. The field is testing the loop, running backward through recent events to establish the boundaries. When it reaches 0, the loop locks permanently. How do I deactivate it? I asked desperately. You can't. Not safely. The device is self-stabilizing. Any attempt to disrupt it prematurely will cause it to activate immediately. However, you can alter the boundary conditions. The field is anchoring to physical objects that have moved through the time period. It's mapping. Your delivery packages are inadvertently serving as anchors. If you move them all to a single location outside the device's range, the field will collapse. It won't have enough distribution to maintain coherence. How far is outside its range? I asked. Based on the power signature, I'd estimate a 6-mile radius. You need to collect all the packages you've delivered today and take them beyond that boundary. Then the device will deactivate safely. I looked at my route list. 27 deliveries. Most were spread across a 5-mile area. Collecting them would mean visiting every address, explaining the situation, retrieving the packages. with the backward time loops happening, with multiple versions of myself operating simultaneously, it would be chaos. Unless... The other Mers, I said aloud. I'm experiencing this, but so are all the loop versions. We can coordinate. Each version of me can collect packages from different addresses. We can work together across time. I started making calls to my own number, reaching versions of myself in different loops. It took effort to convince each one I wasn't crazy, but eventually we organized. 6 versions of Letitia Washington at 6 different temporal positions, all working simultaneously to collect the packages we delivered. We created a shared note document on our phones, marking which addresses each version would handle. The coordination was surreal. I'd arrive at an address, retrieve a package, and see another version of myself doing the same at the next house over. We worked frantically, racing against the timer. The backward loops continued, but now we were ready for them, using them as opportunities to cover more ground. By 11:20 a.m., we'd collected 24 of 27 packages piled in our various vans. We coordinated a meeting point 7 miles north of town, safely outside the device's radius. 3 vans arrived, 3 temporal versions of myself, all carrying packages, all exhausted and confused, but determined. "Where are the other 3?" I asked. "Still in loops further back," one of me replied. "They're working on the last 3 packages." We waited. The storm was arriving, snow beginning to fall. At 11:38 a.m., 2 more vans arrived. 26 packages accounted for. 1 remained. The timer on the device was at 11:27, 11 minutes. At 11:44 a.m., the final van arrived, carrying the last package. All 27 packages were now 7 miles from the device's epicenter. We stood there, 6 versions of the same person, watching our phones as the timer counted down. 0, 06, 18, 0, 06, 17, 0, 06, 16. "What happens when it hits 0 now?" one of me asked. "Dr. Morrison said the field would collapse without enough anchors," I replied. "We should be safe." 10, 8:09. The snow was falling heavily now, covering our vans. 5. We held our breath. 1. The timer reached 0. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the air shimmered and 5 of the vans disappeared. 5 versions of myself vanished, collapsing back into whatever temporal loops they'd emerged from. I was alone, standing in falling snow, surrounded by 27 packages. My phone showed 11:50 a.m., December 23rd, 2019. Single timeline. No more loops. I called Dr. Morrison. It worked. The device hit 0, but the field collapsed. "Thank you." "You should contact the FBI," he said. "Chronometric weapons are terrorism-level threats. Someone sent that device deliberately." I did contact the FBI. They took the device, took my statement, investigated for months. They never found who sent it or why. The postmark from 2025 suggested the sender hadn't been born yet or was currently a child. Time travel implications made the investigation nightmarish. Eventually, it was filed as an unsolved case. I completed 0 deliveries that day. All 27 packages were returned to the post office, marked "unable to deliver due to emergency conditions." The storm turned into a blizzard, and Christmas Eve was spent snowed in. But I was alive, and time was moving forward normally. Sometimes I wonder about the other versions of myself, the loop Letitias who vanished when the timeline collapsed. Did they experience continuing forward, or did they simply cease to exist? Am I the real Letitia, or was I one of the loops who happened to persist when the field collapsed? The mechanics of it keep me awake at night. I still run my delivery service. But now I examine every package carefully. I check sender names. I listen for unusual sounds. And if I ever see another package from T. Kronos, I won't deliver it. I'll drive it immediately to the nearest military base and let them deal with it. Because time loops are terrifying. But worse is the knowledge that someone, somewhere, 6 years in my future, thought it was necessary or amusing to send a time bomb backward to December 2019. And I have no idea if they succeeded in whatever they were actually trying to accomplish, or if stopping their device was exactly what they wanted. Maybe the real Christmas delivery happened, and I helped complete it without understanding. That thought haunts me more than all the rest. Story 7. The truck stop that moved through time. Blake Morrison, 38, independent trucker, hauling refrigerated goods up and down the West Coast. December 21st, 2016. I was driving a load of produce from California to Washington, taking Highway 5 north through Oregon. Standard overnight run. Nothing unusual about the job or the route. I'd made this drive hundreds of times. Around 11 p.m., I was about 40 miles south of Eugene, making good time despite light rain. I'd been on the road for 6 hours and needed fuel plus a rest break. My GPS showed a truck stop coming up in 12 miles. Pete's Fuel and Rest, exit 174. I'd stopped there before. Good coffee, clean facilities, reasonable prices. I started preparing to exit. The sign appeared in my headlights. Pete's Fuel and Rest, next exit. I took the ramp and followed the service road for about a quarter mile. The truck stop appeared exactly where I remembered it. Large parking lot with a dozen spaces for big rigs. Main building with convenience store and restaurant. Fuel islands with diesel pumps. Several trucks were already parked. Lights were on in the building. Everything looked normal. I pulled into the lot and parked in an empty space. The rain had stopped. I shut down my engine and sat for a moment, doing my logbook entries. Time, 11:17 p.m. Location, exit 174, I-5, Oregon. Fuel level, quarter tank, everything standard. I grabbed my wallet and headed inside. The convenience store was exactly as I remembered. Aisles of snacks and road supplies, coolers full of drinks, coffee station near the back, register counter with a clerk. The clerk looked up as I entered. A young guy, maybe 25, wearing a name tag that said Derek. He nodded in greeting, and I nodded back. I poured myself coffee and grabbed a pre-made sandwich from the cooler, then browsed the aisles while I decided what else I needed. The store was quiet, just me and Derek. I could hear the soft rock playing over the speakers, could smell the coffee and the faint diesel odor that permeates every truck stop. Normal. Then I noticed the calendar behind the counter. It showed December 1998. Not December 2016. December 1998. The calendar was new, not a vintage decoration. And next to it was a newspaper in a display rack. The Oregonian, December 21st, 1998. 18 years ago. Today's date, but 18 years in the past. I approached the counter with my coffee and sandwich. "Excuse me," I said to Derek. "That calendar, is that some kind of joke?" He looked confused. "Joke? No, sir. It's December." "December what year?" I asked carefully. 1998, he said, like it was obvious. December 21st, 1998. "Are you feeling okay?" I set down my items and pulled out my phone. The screen showed December 21st, 2016, 11:24 p.m. Full signal, weather forecast, everything current. I showed Derek. "My phone says 2016. His confusion deepened. "That's not possible. It's 1998. Look around. Check the newspapers, the magazines." He gestured at the magazine rack near the door. I walked over. Every magazine was from December 1998. Newsweek with Bill Clinton on the cover. Entertainment Weekly featuring Titanic. Sports Illustrated's year-end issue. "This is impossible," I said. "These are old." "They're from last week," Derek insisted. "Sir, I think you need to sit down. You might be having some kind of medical episode. I walked back outside. My truck was there, modern and exactly as I'd left it. But the other trucks in the lot were older models. I recognized the styles. Late 90s Freightliners, Peterbilts from that era. No modern trucks. I approached the nearest one and looked in the cab. The interior was dated, the dashboard technology 2 decades old. The logbook on the seat showed dates from December 1998. I walked around the building to the fuel islands. The price display showed diesel at $0.94 per gallon. In 2016, diesel was over $3. I checked the pumps. They were older models, the kind that had been phased out years ago. Everything about this place was from 1998, except me and my truck. We were still from 2016. I went back inside. Derek was watching me warily, probably considering calling someone about the crazy trucker. "Okay," I said slowly. "Let's say I believe you. It's 1998. How is that possible? I drove here from 2016. Time's been funny here lately," Derek admitted. "Pete's been getting visitors from different years. Started about a month ago. We'll get someone from the 80s, someone from the 2000s, all convinced it's their year. Pete says it's something about the location. We're sitting on some kind of temporal junction. Crossroads of time, he calls it." "Where's Pete?" I asked. "Out back, in his office. I'll get him." Derek picked up a phone and made a call. A few minutes later, an older man emerged from the back hallway. He was probably 60, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt, with a full white beard. He extended his hand. "Pete Harrison, owner of this establishment. Derek says you're from the future." "Blake Morrison, and I'm from 2016. Or I was when I left California 6 hours ago." Pete nodded, like this made perfect sense. "You're not the first. Had a lady last week from 2004. Nice woman, bought some chips and left. Had a guy from 1977 a few days ago. He stayed for 3 hours, trying to figure out if he was hallucinating. The way I understand it, this truck stop exists at the intersection of multiple timelines. You can arrive here from different years, but you're all arriving at the same place." "How is that possible?" I demanded. "Don't know the physics," Pete admitted, "but I know it happens. Been running this place since 1985. About 5 weeks ago, reality got flexible here. Customers started arriving from different times. The calendar on my wall says 1998, and that's the year I'm living in. But you're living in 2016, and that lady last week was living in 2004. Somehow, we're all here together." I sat down heavily on a bench near the door. My mind was trying to process the impossible. "So I'm actually in 1998 right now?" "Yes and no," Pete said. "You're in a version of 1998 that's accessible from 2016. Think of it like a bus station, where buses from different times arrive at the same platform. The station exists in all those times simultaneously, even though the buses come from different years." "How do I get back?" I asked, feeling panic rising. "I have a delivery due in Washington tomorrow. I can't be trapped in 1998. "You're not trapped," Pete assured me. "Everyone who's come here has been able to leave. Just go back to your truck, get back on the highway, and keep driving. You'll return to whatever year you came from. The temporal junction only exists at this exact location. Once you leave the property, you're back in your own timeline." "Has anyone tried to stay?" I asked. "Tried to use this to time travel deliberately?" Pete's expression darkened. "One guy tried. Last week. He was from 2010, found himself here in 1998, thought he could go out and make a fortune betting on sports or stocks. I warned him not to. He didn't listen. Drove into Eugene. Never came back. I think the paradox got him." You can visit here, but you can't interact with the outside world in a different time period. The universe doesn't allow it. I stood up, suddenly desperate to leave. This was too strange, too dangerous. I'm going. Thank you for the information, but I need to get back to 2016. Understandable, Pete said. Safe travels. And Blake? This happens to more people than you'd think. You're not crazy. You just found one of the thin places where time gets complicated. I walked out of the store without buying anything, got in my truck, and started the engine. The other trucks in the lot were still those old 90s models. I drove carefully out of the parking lot, back onto the service road toward the highway. As I approached the I-5 on-ramp, I watched my dashboard clock. 11:47 p.m. Then, as I merged onto the highway, it flickered. 11:48 p.m. The date stayed December 21st, but I had the strangest sensation of movement, not through space, but through time. I looked in my rearview mirror. The truck stop was still visible, but it looked different. The building seemed newer, the lighting more modern. I blinked, and it was gone entirely, vanished, as if it had never existed. A mile up the highway, I passed exit 174. The sign read, "No services." I pulled up my GPS. Exit 174 showed no truck stop. I searched online for Pete's Fuel and Rest Oregon I-5. Nothing. No business listing, no reviews, no maps entry. I expanded my search. Pete Harrison Truck Stop Oregon. Still nothing. Either it had never existed, or it existed outside of normal searchable reality. I drove the rest of the way to Washington in a daze, delivered my load on time, and tried to rationalize what had happened. Exhaustion, microsleep, vivid dream, all possible explanations. But the date on my logbook entries bothered me. I'd written, Pete's Fuel and Rest exit 174, 11:17 p.m. in my own handwriting. And my fuel level hadn't changed. I never actually filled up. I'd meant to, but I'd left in a panic instead. 3 days later, Christmas Eve, I was driving south on I-5, returning to California. Around midnight, I approached exit 174. The sign appeared. Pete's Fuel and Rest, next exit. My hands were shaking as I took the exit. The service road, the truck stop, the parking lot, all there. But the year was different. The calendar inside read December 2003. The clerk wasn't Derek. It was a woman named Sandra. The magazines were from 2003. The trucks in the lot were early 2000s models. Pete was there, 8 years younger than when I'd seen him 3 days ago. He recognized me. "Blake Morrison, you came back." "You remember me?" I asked, astonished. "That was 3 days ago." "For you," Pete said. "For me, it was 5 years ago. I met you in 1998. Now it's 2003. But I remember everyone who comes through here. The temporal junction doesn't just connect different years. It connects different visits. You're creating a history here, across decades." "Why are you here?" I asked. "Why is this place stuck while you age?" "I'm not stuck," Pete said quietly. "I'm living my life year by year, 1985 to whenever I die. But my truck stop exists at this junction point. People from different times visit the same location, but they arrive at different points in my timeline. To you, this is your second visit in 3 days. To me, you're a repeat customer I haven't seen in 5 years. We're both right." I sat down, trying to wrap my mind around it. "So if I come back next week for my 2016, what year might it be for you?" "Could be anything," Pete said. "Could be 1992. Could be 2007. The junction doesn't progress linearly. It touches different moments in my timeline, based on some variable I don't understand. Maybe it's random. Maybe it's based on the traveler's need or state of mind. But every version of me knows about the junction. Every year of my life from 1985 forward, I'm aware that my truck stop is a temporal crossroads. I've visited Pete's Fuel and Rest 7 times now. Each time, I'm arriving in a different year. 1995, 2001, 2008, 1989, 2000, 2012, 1987. Each time, Pete is the age he would be in that year, but he remembers every visit I've made, regardless of when it occurred in his timeline. His memory is non-linear, stitched together from encounters across 3 decades. He's explained what he knows. The junction formed spontaneously in 1985 when he opened the truck stop. Maybe something about the location, some weakness in space-time, maybe something he did without knowing. But since then, his business has existed partially outside normal time. Customers from different years arrive, stay briefly, and leave. He provides fuel, food, and rest to travelers, not just from different places, but different times. "Do you ever want to leave?" I asked him once, during a visit that corresponded to 1993 for him. "Where would I go?" he replied. "This is my life's work. Besides, someone needs to be here. Imagine arriving at a temporal junction with no one to explain it. You'd think you were losing your mind. I provide a service, not just fuel and coffee, but context. I help people understand they're not crazy, just caught in something larger than themselves." The last time I visited was 2 weeks ago, from my perspective, in January 2017. For Pete, it was July 2005. We sat in his truck stop at 2 a.m., drinking coffee, talking about time and highways and the strange spaces between. He looked tired. "I'm getting older," he said. "Been doing this for 20 years. Sometimes I wonder what happens when I die. Does the junction close? Does the truck stop vanish? Or does it keep existing, looping through the years I was alive, with customers arriving to find me at different ages forever?" I didn't have an answer. I still don't. But I keep driving I-5, and I keep watching for exit 174. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. When it appears, I stop. I visit Pete, buy coffee, and confirm that I'm not insane. Time is flexible. Reality has thin places. And somewhere in Oregon, there's a truck stop that exists in all years, and no years simultaneously, run by a man who ages normally, but experiences visits non-linearly, providing rest and fuel to travelers who've accidentally slipped between the moments. If you ever take exit 174 off I-5 in Oregon and find a truck stop that your GPS doesn't recognize, stop there, buy coffee. Talk to Pete, if he's the right age in his timeline to be there. He'll explain what's happening. He'll tell you how to get back. And he'll remember your visit, even if it takes place in his past or his future. Because at the temporal junction, yesterday, today, and tomorrow are all the same exit. And we're all just travelers trying to find our way back to the highway we understand. Story 8. The Voice from the Static. Ernesto Ruiz, 47 years old, driving for a medical transport company specializing in emergency organ deliveries. December 24th, 2015, Christmas Eve. I received an urgent call at 3:47 a.m. A heart had become available for transplant. I needed to pick it up from a hospital in Flagstaff, Arizona, and deliver it to a surgical team in Albuquerque, New Mexico. 6-hour window. Critical timing. A 16-year-old recipient was already in surgery, being prepped. If I didn't make this delivery, that kid would die. I drove to the hospital, received the organ transport container, a specialized cooling unit with its own power supply and temperature monitoring, and started east on I-40 around 4:30 a.m. The route was straightforward, 325 miles, mostly highway. Should take just under 5 hours with minimal stops. I had buffer time. The night was cold and clear. Traffic was nearly non-existent. Christmas Eve pre-dawn meant most people were home. I had the highway mostly to myself, my headlights cutting through darkness, the transport container secured in the specialized mount on my passenger seat. Its temperature display glowed steady green, optimal conditions. Around 5:15 a.m., about 40 miles east of Flagstaff, my radio went strange. I'd been listening to a news station, but it suddenly cut to static. Not unusual in rural Arizona, radio signals are spotty. I reached to change stations, but before I could, a voice came through the static. "Ernesto, you need to slow down." I froze. The voice was male, calm, speaking directly to me, using my name. I keyed the radio off. Silence. Then I turned it back on, cycling through stations. Every station was static. I turned the radio off entirely and pulled the volume knob out, disconnecting it. The static continued, and the voice returned. "Ernesto, I know you can hear me. You need to slow down to 55 miles per hour. There's an accident ahead. If you maintain current speed, you'll be part of it." I checked my speedometer. 78 miles per hour. Bit above the limit, but necessary for the delivery timeline. I looked at the road ahead. Empty. No signs of accident, no flashing lights, no debris. The voice was either a prank or a delusion, but it knew my name. "Who is this?" I asked aloud, feeling ridiculous for speaking to a radio I'd disconnected. "Someone trying to keep you alive," the voice replied, "and trying to keep that heart in your passenger seat viable." The accident occurs at mile marker 264 in 7 minutes at your current speed. Semi-truck jackknifes on ice. The pile-up involves 6 vehicles. You'll be the 7th if you don't slow down. Slow to 55. You'll arrive after the accident has occurred. You'll be able to navigate around it. The heart will still reach Albuquerque in time. I should have dismissed it. Voices from disconnected radios don't give traffic warnings. But something about the specificity compelled me. Mile marker 264. 7 minutes. Semi-truck on ice. I slowed to 55. My delivery timeline was tight, but I had some buffer. If the voice was wrong, I'd speed back up. I drove, watching the mile markers. 259. 260. 261. At 262, I saw lights ahead, flashing red and blue, emergency vehicles. As I approached 264, the scene materialized in my headlights. A massive pileup, exactly as the voice had described. A semi-truck lay on its side, jackknifed across multiple lanes. 6 other vehicles were involved, scattered across the highway and median. Emergency responders were everywhere. An ambulance, fire trucks, state patrol cars. The road was completely blocked. I slowed further, following the traffic being redirected by a state trooper onto an improvised detour through the median and onto the shoulder. The voice had been right. Perfectly, impossibly right. If I'd been traveling at 78 miles per hour, I would have arrived 7 minutes earlier. Before the accident, I would have been part of the pileup. Once past the scene, back on clear highway, I spoke to the radio again. "Thank you. You saved my life. Who are you?" Static for a long moment. Then, "I'm you, Ernesto. 15 years from now. December 24th, 2030. I'm 72 years old, and I'm using technology that doesn't exist in your time to send a message backward through radio waves. Targeting you specifically, this moment specifically, because I remember it. I remember almost dying in that accident. Almost failing to deliver the heart. Almost letting a 16-year-old girl die because I was driving too fast." "That's impossible," I whispered. "You say that a lot in the next 15 years, the voice, my voice, I realized now, responded. "Every time something impossible happens, you say that. But impossible things happen constantly, Ernesto. You just haven't experienced enough of them yet. Listen carefully. This isn't the only danger tonight. There are 3 more critical moments before you reach Albuquerque. I'm going to guide you through them." I drove in stunned silence. listening to myself from 15 years in the future. The voice explained, in 2030, technology would exist that could transmit information backward through time using quantum entanglement and radio waves. It was expensive, limited, and controversial. But on Christmas Eve 2030, 72-year-old Ernesto Ruiz paid for a single use of the technology to send a warning back to his younger self, to prevent the mistakes that had shaped 30 years of regret. The girl's name is Sophie Torres, my future self said. In my timeline, the original timeline, you didn't slow down. You were part of that pileup. The transport container was damaged. The heart was compromised. It arrived at the hospital unusable. Sophie died on the operating table at 8:47 a.m. You were injured but survived. You blamed yourself for the next 30 years. You never forgave yourself for driving too fast, for not being more careful. But I slowed down, I said. I avoided the accident. The heart is safe. In this timeline, yes, the voice confirmed. But there are 3 more danger points. At 6:23 a.m., near mile marker 312, there's a section of road with a radar speed trap. You're going to be tempted to speed to make up time. Don't. If you get pulled over for even 5 minutes, you'll miss your window. Stay at 65. At 7:15 a.m., you'll need fuel. There are 2 gas stations at the chamber's exit. Take the second one, not the first. The first station's pump is malfunctioning. It will take 28 minutes to resolve. The second station is clear. Finally, at 8:05 a.m., when you're 15 miles from the hospital, you'll see an accident blocking the main route. You'll think you need to take Highway 47 as a detour. Don't. That route has construction. You'll be delayed 40 minutes. Instead, take Paseo del Norte, then circle north. It adds 7 miles, but saves 30 minutes. Why are you telling me all this? I asked. Why is this so important 15 years later? There was a long pause. Static hissed. Then my future voice, quieter now. Because Sophie Torres grows up. In the timeline where she lives, where you save her, she becomes a doctor. She specializes in pediatric cardiology. Over her 30-year career, she saves hundreds of children with heart conditions. She pioneers a new surgical technique in the 2040s that revolutionizes transplant procedures. But none of that happens if she dies today. Your delivery isn't just about one life. It's about hundreds, maybe thousands eventually. The ripples of this moment spread decades into the future. I felt the weight of that knowledge crushing down on me. The transport container next to me wasn't just carrying a heart. It was carrying futures, possibilities, cascading consequences. How do you know all this? I asked. How do you know what she accomplishes? Because I met her, my future self said. In 2028, I had a heart condition. I needed surgery.